we're going to make a witch's house for a Halloween themed fairy garden. So you start off with a clean pot and you paint it over with some undercoat paint. Once you've done that, you let it dry and then you pick out a colour. I'm going with purple, and you paint that all over again as well and let that dry. You can do several coats or you can just leave it rough like I did. Once that's dried, you can draw the door on and some windows. I've set the windows just above the door on either side of it because it makes the house look a little bit more spooky. It's looking a little bit like eyes and a mouth, so I like that sort of thing, a bit of subtle spookiness there. It's just that it's not how a house would normally look. So once I've done the outlines there, I just fill it in with some white paint. It makes a really good background to paint over the top. Particularly if you're going to use fluorescent paints, it just brings the colours out more. So now I'm just doing the outline. I generally like to do that first before I colour it in the middle. It helps to keep the lines inside the shape. So I've decided to put a window in it. Makes the door look a little bit more interesting. You can see what I mean? That looks like two eyes and a mouth there. Makes it a little bit more creepy, which is what I want for a witch's house. So I've painted in the windows with a yellow background to make it look like the lights are on. And I decided to make the frames of the doors look a little bit more wooden-like. I've used a combination of white and black there to draw the outlines around it, and I'm doing the same for the window frames so they match. Here I'm painting a little square spot for where the door handle is going to go. I eventually darkened the outline to the door a bit more. Some of the fluorescent paint had leaked outside the outline that I drew and it looked a bit funny, so I just used a darker paint to go over the top of it to stop it from shining through. So here I am cutting out the brim of the hat. For the brim, I got a nice circular shape and the right size by tracing around the base of the witch's house. And for the cone, I've used a larger bowl, which is about a third size bigger than the circle for the brim of the hat, and that should be the right size for the cone. Once you're finished tracing out the circles, you just cut them out along the line. Here I'm folding the circle into quarters. That provides some nice strong fold lines for me to do some cutting out. I started out by cutting a quarter out in case half was too drastic. But once I rolled it up, it didn't quite look right. So I cut it into a half shape and tried with that one, and that made a big difference. What I did then was I got some craft glue and saturated the rim of the top of the witch's house and pressed the brim down after I had centered it. I also used a lot of glue on the cone of the hat. I saturated it along the edges and then weighted it down with a pair of scissors and let it dry. And once it was dry, I went around the inside of it with some glue and placed it on the centre of the hat or the brim, and then went round the outside of it with the glue again. I probably let that dry for at least a day because it was very thick. I should also mention that when you put the cone on top, you want the seam of the cone to be at the back of the house. While I was waiting for the glue to dry, I decided to decorate it by making a small broomstick. I found some dried up twigs and a small stick, and I used a piece of sticky tape with the ends sticking down to the table and the centre part of the sticky tape being sticky facing upwards. And I've placed the twigs on top and sealed it over the top with some more sticky tape, and at the end of the line of twigs I've taped the stick or broom handle to one end and then rolled them all up. Once that was done, I found some shiny string. I tied a knot around it at one end and left a long piece dangling down. So once I wrapped the string around as much as I wanted, I had something to tie the end of the string to. Then I just trimmed off all of the little bits and pieces that were hanging down, and basically that was the broom done. I couldn't use it as a prop next to the door because I made this one too big, so I thought it would make a good decoration for the roof. I'll be giving the door a doorknob later, and I'll also probably get a little fairy and put a witch's cap on her too. Here's an image of the witch's house with the fairy projection that I've provided free at my Halloween channel, and a little pumpkin on the side with the broomstick on top. So that's it, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Halloween.